Hey y'all, my name is Kilty, at least that's what I go by online. Welcome to my rant about things I find stupid about school. My friend Virus has already created another vent script like this. Check him out on YouTube at Virus Lord of Goobers, which he voiced over and edited into a video that has already been posted on his channel. You should check that out after this one, link in the description. Virus's video focused more on his in-person school experience, while mine will mostly focus on my online school experience. Yes, I take online school for reasons we'll get into, but if the thought of online school bores you, rest assured, I'm sure you'll find something spicy in this video. My video also gets far more emotional as I've had genuine mental health problems because of school, so if you're sensitive to topics like suicide and depression, so sorry to spoil the video, you should probably get off the video now before we get too deep into that business. This video will probably also get super ranty because I need to get this information off of my chest and tell somebody about it. I need somebody to listen, and I'm glad you guys will listen. However, on a brighter note, this video dubs as an ad for a movement against the school system I started with Virus, called the Equality and Rights for Students Union, or ERSU. More details for it will be at the end, so stick around until the end if you agree that schools need to change. One last thing before we get into the juicy stuff. This is all from my own experience. Just because I've had a bad experience with certain things I'll mention in this video doesn't mean you will, or that you automatically have to think it's bad, even if you enjoyed it or thought it was good before. I happen to go to school in a broke, lower middle class area, so everything will be worse for me by default, pretty much. That's not to say that the quality of your education, depending on where you live, isn't a problem with the school system, as many people, including myself, fall victim to it. But more on that later. With that, let's finally get into it. As of writing this part of the script, I'm in 8th grade, and if you haven't already been able to tell, I have a neurodivergence called ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. ADHD comes with some perks, like being more creative, and I guess that's it, for me at least. But it also comes with some pretty heavy quirks, one of which is that schools don't seem to care that you may have it, at least with my experience. If any staff care at all, it's probably the nurse or the counselor. It's almost a guarantee that none of the other staff members care. And that sucks because unless you're a troublemaker and the teachers send you out often, you'll see the teachers the most at school, who just so happen not to care about my neurodivergence. Future Kilty here. That part of the script was written many months ago, and I realized that I made a mistake. The teachers don't just not care, they might simply not know that I have ADHD. However, this still highlights a problem with the education system. Teachers, and the whole system for that matter, treat every student as one and the same, not considering their differences like different learning styles and, in this case, neurodivergences, and letting them slip under the radar. So while I was wrong, they aren't completely off the hook. Okay, back to past Kilty. I'm also gonna get tested for the autism spectrum soon, hopefully. Never mind, maybe not, but I probably have it. I might blame certain things mentioned in this video on ADHD when it might really be something else. Be prepared for some possible misinformation. This video is more for opinions than facts anyway. Let's try to describe my old schedule before I transferred with as much detail as I can without doxing myself to strangers online. Now I'm gonna give you a rundown of my old classes. Buckle up! My school has an interesting schedule where advisory comes first. It's weird, but I'm not complaining. Most of the time during advisory, I get on a Google Doc Virus and I share for chatting, and we spend the rest of the time mostly chatting. Maybe we work on one of our stories because we write stories, maybe we work on the script, or maybe we work on scripts for videos on the ERSU channel. That's right, we work on scripts for anti-school videos while uncoincidentally being at school. What troublemakers we are. So advisory is a pretty good start to the day. It's a shame it's only 30 minutes, 25 minutes less than the normal class time. But what helps is that the next period is also pretty cool. That cool class is my STEM class with a teacher everyone loves. I will call him Mr. Nice Guy in this video. Mr. Nice Guy is pretty fun and funny, so even the biggest troublemakers will think he's cool. He taught us stuff like 3D printing, connecting circuit boards and components, building CO2 cars with regular balsa wood blocks, and making mousetrap cars out of a mousetrap, of course, and specifically laser-cut wood tiles. It was a pretty awesome class. My next period was science, with a teacher I will call Miss Oklahoma, as in okay. which doesn't hold too many new miracles in the form of new complaints other than the teacher being blunt and shaming me when I was behind on assignments, which I guess is to be expected. But seriously, do you blame me? We have too many classes and too little time in this class to do the stuff she says we forgot to do when she never even told us they existed. Or who knows, maybe it's another case of the teachers not caring that I have ADHD again. But you know what? I gotta give credit where it's due. I've had some of my best experiences outside of advisory and Mr. Nice Guy's class in here. The hands-on learning in this class is peak. We gotta do stuff like Bunsen burner experiments, and you know where you have a little pan of milk with food coloring in there, and then you put a drop of soap in it, and the food coloring swirls around and goes crazy? Yeah, we got to do that too. It was awesome. We also got to watch some episodes of my GOAT, Bill Nye the Science Guy. Episodes of his show are my favorite highlights of any science class I'm in. I'm sure many of you also love to watch Bill Nye during science class. Well, other than that, the class is just okay. So let's move on. My third period was social studies / history, also with a nice teacher. I won't go into too much detail to the point where I won't even come up with a code name for her, as this is meant to be a complaining video, and I won't mention her in this video again. But my fourth period class is where it all went down. But before I talk about my English class, I'll give you some background information. Here's my theory. Virus and I live in an area in the US where the cost of living is extremely high, weeding people out and only allowing those who are rich enough to meet the prices to live here. Not gonna lie, it's kinda ironic how people are so rich, yet the school I go to is a dump, but whatever. Anyway, because of this, most kids here are spoiled brats, so they think they can get or do whatever they want. And that's only exacerbated by the fact that, judging by most of my teachers' discipline rules, they never have to face any consequences for their actions. Now, let's see how that goes in my fourth period class, English. I'll call my English teacher Miss Shorty, as in short-tempered. She wasn't physically short. Miss Shorty would get so mad at her students pretty easily. While I don't entirely blame her, I do believe that there are many things she could have done better to handle the students. But I'll be honest, the students are annoying as heck. They curse non-stop, they always talk over the teacher when they're supposed to listen, and when she notices, they act like they did nothing, which is gaslighting her. How stupid is that? But I won't just complain about the students. No, I also need to complain about Miss Shorty. She practices collective punishment. If you don't know what that is, it's basically punishing the whole class when only a few students do something wrong. It sucked extra for me because about 29 times out of 30, I was doing what she asked us to. Once a part of the class was doing something wrong, I forgot what, and she got so annoyed that she called in a sub to replace her for tomorrow, right then and there. Talk about a short temper, dude. I don't even think she's allowed not to do her job because she simply doesn't want to. At that point, she might as well just quit. The next day, we had to fill out a reflection sheet, which was not only stupid to me because I'd done nothing wrong in the situation, but it was also stupid to the offenders because, seriously, why make a freaking reflection sheet when you know that it won't help them learn from the mistake they made? I mean, unless she really thought that doing that would change their minds, I guess, but that seems ridiculous. I can say without a sliver of a doubt that whatever they were doing, it was definitely on purpose, and a stupid reflection sheet definitely won't make them reconsider their decision. They just like to do whatever they want with no questions. If anything, they might be happy that they have an excuse to procrastinate on more useful assignments, so that was a pretty stupid idea. I just filled in answers that complained about how I wish my peers weren't so stupid and how I wish school as a whole cracked down on bullies and brainless idiots more. Because seriously, why don't they? Oh yeah, that's right! Of course, because of their utter incompetence. Never get enough of it. Lunchtime. Hooray. The lunches were mediocre. I usually just got the best fruit they had, a pizza, and some chocolate milk. I guess it was fine. I won't elaborate too much on this because this is meant to be a complaint video. My next period was algebra. Virus took a class with my algebra teacher last year and said he was extremely lazy, and while I don't fully agree with that, I'll base his nickname on it, Mr. Dormant. Mr. Dormant was a pretty good guy, I'll be honest. His class was one of the only ones where I could make good friends, especially with the 7th graders in the class because they were more intelligent for their age, so they were more like me. In fact, when I transferred, this was the only class I missed, as I made some pretty decent friends there. You'll see why I didn't miss Mr. Nice Guy's class in a moment. Anyway, less reminiscing, more complaining. Let's now talk about the last class. My last class was PE with a teacher similar to the Mr. NPC virus mentioned in his vent video, so I'll call him Mr. Trigger, as in he might trigger you to be mad or sad, whether on purpose or not. Mr. Trigger was also okay, I guess. I once again don't have much to say about it, especially since this is meant to be a complaining video. I guess I just stayed on everybody's good sides, and I was fine. So, that's a description of my old classes. Now, let's talk about why I transferred. Now we talk about my thoughts on wanting to transfer. But before we get into that, let's answer the question you've probably had in your mind. Why did you think switching to online school would help? To be honest, I have no idea. I probably had the wrong idea about how online school would work. I think I thought of it as some super fun version of school, which just isn't true. So that's my bad. But none of that erases the problems I've had that have made me want to, which I'll talk about now. Pop quiz. You have 4 seconds to guess who you think is responsible. That's right, it's Mr. Nice Guy. Wait a sec. What? I thought Mr. Nice Guy was a cool teacher. How is this his fault? Okay, I'll fill you in. It wasn't Mr. Nice Guy's fault specifically, but it was in his class that I started to want to transfer. One time we tested the strength of some wooden stick cubes we designed to be strong under a hydraulic press-like thing. But what sucked was that apparently we were supposed to take notes on the statistics? I'd never heard a thing. Bad ADHD, bad. Again, it might be autism. But then, even worse than that, when we were done, we were told we had to graph the statistics for an assignment. The pain! I had considered doing online school before, but that was back when I was in 7th grade, and I still had time during the school day to talk to Virus and such. We would still see each other at church, but it would have been nice to talk to him more. But in 8th grade, I had nothing to miss anymore, as we had no classes together, if you don't count having advisory at the same time. But we weren't even in the same classroom then, so I could just as easily do what I do with him at home. So yeah, nothing to miss anymore. No longer having anything to miss was further proven a few days later when Miss Oklahoma wrote me a pass to come to her advisory because I was absent one day and didn't turn in a quiz. I finished the quiz during that period, but before I left, she made sure to tell me that I was behind in her class. And believe me, she made it sound as demotivating as possible. I just said I didn't have an excuse and would try to be better about it to try not to make her mad. Even though I had a perfect reason! The material may be easy, but why make the assignment so hard and time-consuming if the material is really that easy? She would never understand. No teacher will ever understand that. They will always just say we have to work harder. What do you freaking mean? Surprise, surprise, I also had problems with Miss Shorty's class. Just for a bit of context, I tend to only enjoy reading if the book is exactly right for me. For example, I can only bring myself to read realistic fiction or a blend of that and fantasy. Otherwise, I'd probably be so bored with the book that I'd rather watch paint dry. I'm not even kidding. While watching paint dry, I can control my thoughts and maybe even hum a song to myself, which I can't do while reading and focusing on a boring book. So in Miss Shorty's class, we had to log our reading every week. But ADHD, or autism, struck once again. Yay! As in, I didn't have any books to read because it was way too painful to find the right ones. Because of that, I often didn't turn in any of my logs because I couldn't fill them out. I felt like I never got caught for it since Miss Shorty never said anything, but I also knew I couldn't keep doing it forever. She would have known eventually, but there wasn't much I could do about it, so alas, I had to keep going like that. But there was another thing she made us do that sucked. During October, she decided to throw a double punch. 2 massive assignments due by the end of the month. One of them was to find a book from the school library at the beginning of the month, read it all the way to the end, and then make a poster about it. Sounds like a not too bad task, right? But the problem was that the book I happened to choose was so boring. I only picked it because the author made it sound super exciting and fun on the back, but the book itself was a total train wreck. It was just about some British guy with a mom who doesn't love him for no reason that made sense whatsoever. And he acts more like a son to his neighbor a few stories down than his own mom. His real mom might as well have disowned him. Since he was 16 years old, 2 years older than me, and 3 years older than me at the time I read it, I couldn't relate to him at all, and he got a job at a place I barely even remember. And he and his friends cursed. A lot. But worst of all, for whatever reason, every single character in the book acted like they had only slept 2 hours the night before, being misanthropically sour and rude to everyone else just for saying hello. It made the book an excruciatingly unpleasant read. By the end of the month, I was supposed to read all 250 pages of it, but I only made it to page 30. I never made it past that. I probably couldn't even if there wasn't a time limit. So I just had to act like I had completely forgotten about the poster assignment, which definitely couldn't have been true based on how many times Miss Shorty kept bugging the class about it. I forgot how she reacted because I left her online school just a week after the due date. And we'll get to that story soon, I promise. Then the second assignment, to write a short horror story. The unit was then on horror stories, and writing one of our own was an outrageous assignment. I can't be forced to be creative. The ideas have to come to me on their own, whenever. I can't just will myself to think of ideas. Don't get me wrong, I like writing stories. In fact, it's a hobby I do quite a bit. But to force us to come up with ideas when she says we should is ludicrous. My story turned out to be a disaster. The plot didn't line up at all. It wasn't even that scary. And the idea wouldn't have even been that bad if I weren't restricted to a measly 3 pages max. She limited us to 3 pages on Google Docs. She wants us to be super creative, yet shackles us with the page limit. What is up with that, man? My story probably could have been good if I had had the freedom to explore my ideas, but no, I was forced into doing it in 3 pages in just 2 weeks instead, turning it into a dumpster fire. A story I've been working on with Virus for a while has so many pages that it gives my Chromebook a freaking performance issue whenever I open it with a few other tabs. Yeah, we need that many pages to write a solid story, and we've been brainstorming it for over a year and writing it for half of a year. But Miss Shorty just expects us to be overly incomplete and rushed, which is purely insane. The rest of the school day was fine, I guess, but it didn't do much to lift my spirits. I'm not going to talk about Mr. Dormant's or Mr. Trigger's class more because they weren't very awesome, meaning they couldn't convince me to stay after Miss Shorty's class destroyed all of my want to be at that school. At least whatever was left of it. I had to get out of there. Convincing my parents that I had to leave was a lengthy process that I wish they had listened to sooner. I was thinking I wanted to switch to online school for about a month, and I've tried really hard to convince them for all of that time, but finally there was one thing that convinced them in the end. Let's talk about suicide. Disclaimer, if you are sensitive to topics like this, you may want to click off the video now before we get into incredibly personal stuff. Just be prepared for that. Although I guess I did mention this at the start of the video, so you probably wouldn't click off now if you stayed past the intro. Also, don't worry, I'm fine now after starting Ursu, as it is giving me hope for the future. But let's say I was in the worst mental state of my life at that time. I'll try not to get emotional at this part, but if I do, you know why. If I don't get emotional, it's probably because I'm reading this from a script. I'd be more likely to get emotional if I were speaking live. And remember that the only reason I bring this stuff up is because it's relevant to the story of how I got out of in-person school. Okay, no more stalling. Let's get to the sauce. I had been suicidal because of, you guessed it, school. I used to like school back in early elementary school when my grades were still all above B's and I was learning about stuff I was interested in. For example, in 2nd grade, I remember how amazed I was when I was taught that a year is just one period of the Earth orbiting the Sun, and a day is just how long it takes for the Earth to rotate once on its axis. It seems like common knowledge now, but it was pretty cool to learn about the basis of how humans kept time. But then, as I grew older, the stuff I was learning became less interesting. While I knew the material decently enough to pass if my grades were only based on true knowledge, my grades were dropping like a meteor shower. And, slowly but surely, so did my self-esteem. I knew that jobs would only accept me if I had good grades. If there were things I could start on my own, like a YouTube channel, that would be incredibly luck-based and inconsistent with the payment. Let's go gambling! Assuming I even get anywhere in the first place. It seemed like everywhere would be a dead end if I didn't get good grades, and I kept hammering myself down for not being better. I knew that if I didn't do this, I would be poor and live with my parents my whole life. But I couldn't do it. I was worsening by the day. For a reason I won't mention because I don't want to go into personal details, my parents found out about my thoughts, so they took me back into a room where nobody in the house could hear us and talked it out with me. Now, this conversation was a doozy, so again, I won't get into it. But there was one big, good thing that came out of that conversation with my parents. They finally decided to enroll me in online school after finding out what I was going through. I was finally free! When I left for home on that last day, I thought to myself, bye-bye, school. I won't miss you, and it wasn't nice knowing you. Your negative influence on my life is no more. And that is how I finally escaped the maze of despair at my in-person school. So now I have online school. It can't be that bad, right? Ironically, although I mentioned that my online school experience would be the main focus of this video at the start, it would still be boring either way, as it is online and isolated, so I won't make this section as long as the last. I was only on day 3 of online school when the first significant bump in my journey came. I was registered in my online school system 2 days late, but I still had to do the assignments for those 2 days I missed, leaving me behind on day 1. It's so dumb, but the worst part is that by then, I had not built any habits for catching up, so I was tumbling behind with no deceleration, like a rock on a baseless mountain. Eventually, I just became numb to the bumps on the slide down the mountain, so I stopped caring. Not like I cared much before, but I stopped caring about school, period. I only did it to scrape the bottom of the barrel for any education of good use I could get out of it when I believed I needed it. Or in other words, basically never, as most of the stuff was pretty pointless. I'll give a summary of my online classes next. Now for my online classes. Buckle up. My English class quote-unquote taught me that the word "and" is a signal word that signals bringing up another object or idea in the sentence. No joke, that was a given back before preschool. Why are we rehashing the stuff I learned over a decade and a fifth ago and 4/5 of my entire existence ago in 8th grade? No more attention is paid to English class, that says it all. They just love to ramble about perimeter and area with algebraic formulas in my algebra class. Let's say you had a rectangle with side lengths x and 3x. They hand you a way to solve for x, and then you're supposed to calculate the perimeter and area of the shape. Who does that? No one, I'm telling you. If people actually needed to use the area and perimeter of shapes, nobody would ever convert them into algebraic formulas. Ever. And these exponential graph functions, bro. Sure, they may come in handy in some relatively obscure scenarios, so I'll give that a tiny pass. And I really like playing around with the Desmos graphing calculator. But why are they teaching us how to make the curvy line on the graph reflect across the x-axis or the y-axis? Seriously? While it may be useful in some cases, why make us do tons of these questions back to back? It's so tedious. Near the end of the year, I learned about this super easy formula that you should totally be able to do in your head 10 times in a single assignment that looks like this. And what does this formula do, I don't hear you asking? It solves for the x-intercepts of a parabola on a graph. What? Yeah, I'm serious. Why are we learning this? If I ever needed to find out the x-intercepts of a parabolic function, I would just put it into the Desmos graphing calculator and find the intercepts myself. And I won't even need to do that. It gets worse. I've never had to take notes in my life. Yet my algebra class forced me to take notes on paper exactly as they said to, and I'm being graded on it. What the heck? Graded on my notes when I've never had to take notes before? Come on. Hey, hold on a second. Kilty, you have a PE class online? How does that work? Well, it's simple. You fill out a log of all the fitness stuff you've done the whole semester, and if the time adds up to more than 40 hours, you pass. What's kind of hilarious is that I was still doing tons of walking on the treadmill at home when, in the end, all I did was add up the time I had already spent doing fitness stuff in my in-person PE class with Mr. Trigger at the beginning of the year.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
To think I could have gotten that done on day 1, but I took way too long to realize the super easy solution. Crazy. Then came my science class. Again, mostly just useless stuff. They were teaching me about something called polymers, which I completely forgot about, just that they had something to do with connecting molecules. If you want to know what they really are, here's a screenshot of what Google Dictionary told me. The question about all of this still stands. Why will we need this? Oh yeah, we won't! I won't elaborate more on science, because I believe that says it all right there. Last class, history. This class probably isn't much different from the history class you have if you live in America. Just learning about stuff like battles, elections, independence, annexation, brutally taking the native Indians' land and brutally forcing them into boarding schools. All BS that, how many times have I said this by now, We won't need. If we ever do need it, at the very most, we will only need it to learn from all the past mistakes other people have made in the past. But I believe we will learn a lot more from our own experiences than someone else's, let alone people who lived hundreds of years ago in a world that's very different from today's. So that doesn't pass for me, and I have an issue with the core way the subject is taught. Instead of teaching us how what happened in the past shaped how things are today, which would be much more interesting, we're taught about it as if it's from some hundreds of years old fiction story. It's so boring, and there's so much untapped potential in it. I see a world where history class could genuinely be fun, but in this state it's just super boring, and I guess that's all I have to say for that. And those are my classes. Now it's time for me to conclude my case. As you all just witnessed, I was the victim of insane asininity with school. I was punished for things I didn't do, I was hammered down for not being up to date when it wasn't my fault, and I felt completely shunned for having ADHD without a single soul in the school staff knowing. But of course, despite all of that, none of it excuses how badly I, myself, was doing at school. It was all my fault. Right? No! How am I expected to catch up in time when I haven't been taught before then? They registered me 2 days late themselves, and the work is all the same tedious, pointless slop. How is this my fault? It can't be. It is in fact the fault of none other than the school. Take this brag alert, but I can list off many useful skills I have, verbatim, right now. I can code with Scratch, and I'm learning Python. I can produce awesome music, write decent stories, especially for my age, that people stick around reading until the end. Name every country recognized by the United Nations and the capitals of said countries, though I am a bit rusty with the capitals. Make 10 minutes plus, non-clickbait, non-brain rot YouTube videos across 6 channels that get up to 31,000 views. And I have a stronger vocabulary than 99% of people I know of at my age. And I know my voice isn't something I can control, nor is it a skill per se, but some people online have said that with my voice and how maturely I speak, since they can't see my face, they think I'm an adult. I've once been jokingly accused of pulling a prank when I said I was only 14 years old, not just based on my voice, but my maturity too. Now I would say that that is definitely something I can brag about. With those skills I just mentioned, I could be a software engineer, a game designer, a music producer who sells his music, a freelance song commission taker, which I already plan on being soon, an author, a linguist, a YouTuber, a video editor, and or so many more things. And my skill set is definitely only going to grow and get better as I get older. But as long as I can't solve for X, school doesn't give a crap about any of that. School always assumes really terribly of our abilities and what we want to do when we grow up. I don't want to be a mathematician, a historian, or someone who studies million-year-old rocks and finds out where they come from. But school just assumes I want to be all of those, not one at a time, but all at once. It is for all of these reasons that I blame all of these problems of mine on the school. I rest my case. I'm adding this part to the script way later than I made the rest of it. I wrote most of the rest of this script from around February to April, but I'm writing this part during August, when my summer break is about to be over. Over the break, I've started to appreciate the good things about school a bit more, such as making friends, the routine for the most part, and at least trying to be a form of education when there isn't really another place you can get it, to my knowledge. I'm sure that Mr. Nice Guy, Miss Oklahoma, Miss Shorty, and Mr. Trigger— okay, well, not Miss Shorty, but Mr. Nice Guy, Miss Oklahoma, and Mr. Trigger were all trying to do their job, and that they will make mistakes, just as any human being will and should. If by some crazy super coincidence any of you are watching, I hope you can take this as an opportunity to learn from your mistakes. It wasn't their direct fault that I became suicidal for a while, nor was it anybody's fault but my own. Well, partly, that I was behind in online school the whole time. My biggest issue is just that school gives us a sense of false hope. They claim to open many doors for us, when in reality they just slam them and lock them in our faces. They claim to support our futures, when in reality they impose certain futures on you and force you to deal with them. They claim to give students power, when in reality they censor us endlessly. And they claim to do and be so many things that they simply do not or are not. So what is this to say? Should we get rid of school? No, of course not. Without school, we wouldn't know how to read, we wouldn't know how to do 1 + 1, and stuff like YouTube most likely would have never been invented, and you wouldn't be watching this video right now. So what am I saying? I'm saying that schools need to change. How? Well... This video is partly an invitation to join the movement I've started with Virus, the Equality and Rights for Students Union, or ERSU. We're committed to transforming our school system to better align with the evolving needs of society. So, what do we want to accomplish? Here are some of our goals. 1. To give an equal opportunity for education. Every student deserves a fair chance to learn and succeed. 2. To increase the funding. We gotta ensure our schools have the resources they truly need. 3. To support underserved communities. It's time to redistribute funds to provide schools in lower middle class areas with better opportunities to learn. 4. To give students authentic learning. We gotta replace the rote learning that stifles creativity with engaging real-world education. 5. To finally stop bullying. We need to fix or just get rid of outdated rules that let bullying happen and not receive any attention. 6. To stop indoctrination. We should foster open minds in the students by making it so schools can't force specific beliefs on them. 7. To revamp the grading systems. Instead of ranking students, we should celebrate progress and encourage growth. 8. To pick better teachers and pay them better. It's time to raise teachers' wages while making sure we have the best educators to shape our future. 9. To make the food better. Students deserve access to healthy meals that support their well-being, not wet toilet paper rolls. 10. To give tailored learning paths. Allow students to explore their passions and interests earlier, shaping their education to fit their dreams. 11. To clean the bathrooms. Yeah! Woohoo! And 12. To empower students' voices. Even if their views and opinions are unpolished, students should be heard and have a say in their education. Now, a disclaimer for those who might disagree and are probably yelling at the screen right now. We understand that different countries have different needs, but in America, my home country, we believe that fostering free-thinking students through these 12 goals could definitely be transformative. You might wonder, Kilty, how do you know that this will work? Because we can look to Finland. Their schools do most everything that we imagine and more, proving that happy students do much better than not so happy ones. Our movement aims to draw inspiration from their success to enhance mental health, academic performance, and life skills here at home. Our path may not mirror theirs exactly. In fact, it probably won't, especially considering that Helsinki is 4,303 miles away from Washington, D.C., but we're determined to find out what works best for us. I know this vision may seem like a dream, and for Virus and me, it is. But dreams become reality through action. We need your support to make this change happen. If you resonate with our vision, please visit our channel in the description and join our Discord server. We love to connect and grow this community together. Let's create a brighter future for our students. Who knows, this movement might just pave the way for a better tomorrow. Hi guys, Kilty here. This video has been in the works for an uncannily long time. So if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe so you won't miss more videos. It helps out more than you realize. Now to the fan art show. I have 2 from Lizzie Poo Draws and another from Dimed. I've shown one of the ones from Lizzie in the last video, but I got this new one from her recently. She posted it in the Discord saying, "You and me." I got another one from Dimed. It's fan art of Virus and me. Big thanks to Lizzie and Dimed for these fan arts. Okay, it's time to end the video. Bye bye, have a wonderful day.